Hello everyone, I'm Lucy Fanger, CEO of On Technology Partners, and I'm proud to be sponsoring our new program, Women STaRs. In each episode, we will spotlight an amazing woman and the struggles and triumphs that she has faced. Then we will reflect and share her insights. Our goal is to engage, entertain, and explore the women STaRs in our world today. I hope you enjoy.
I want to thank you all for listening today. My name is Shanti Harkness, and I'm the Media Manager for On Technology Partners, a women-owned company addressing cybersecurity and risk. Join us as we share the reflections of women just like you that have survived struggles and embraced triumphs in their lives. Today, we'll be talking with Loree Vick. Loree is founder of Vick Communications, which provides coaching and training in presentation skills, personal communication, and professional image, featuring her signature Present Like a Pro courses. Loree also provides full-scale video storytelling production, for which she frequently serves as on-camera and voiceover talent. A native Clevelander, Loree had an award-winning television news anchor and reporter career with CBS and Fox News in Cleveland. She anchored a #1 ranked newscast for a record 15 years. As a professional on-camera and voice talent, Loree has appeared in numerous broadcast commercials, voiceovers, corporate training films, and print advertisements. She's an accomplished public speaker and sought after for her inspirational keynote addresses, especially on the topic of mental health awareness. In 2005, Loree lost her husband to suicide, and she is now committed to advocacy for depression awareness. Loree holds a Master of Fine Arts degree in theater from Case Western Reserve University and a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Communications and Education from Cleveland State University. She has also taught speech and communications at the college level. Loree, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Happy to be here. Thank you for the honor to be among the esteemed women that you have focused.
Oh, well, we're glad to have you. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So tell us something that others may not know about you or something exciting about yourself.
Well, something that probably doesn't show up, especially in a bio that one reads, is that I love to bake, and bake specifically friendship bread. It's called Amish friendship bread. And I'll tell you a little bit about what Amish friendship bread is. Amish friendship bread is a starter dough that one receives, and you let this dough grow for 10 days, feeding it a couple of times, and it multiplies by 4, this dough does, at the end of 10 days. So theoretically, at the end of 10 days, you now have 4 recipes to make Amish friendship bread. The thought is that you make the bread and then you give 3 of these starter doughs to friends, hence Amish friendship bread. And the original dough that I received was given to me by a colleague whom I worked with at Fox 8 News 32 years ago. And I have kept that dough alive for 32 years by baking every 10 days. So it's kind of of mine. It grew into like a pet around the house, but I always have Amish friendship bread around. In that time, I've learned you can actually freeze the dough, so you don't have to do it every 10 days. I only give it to people whom I feel a fondness toward, and it's to me, it's a great gift from the heart when I give my Amish friendship bread to somebody. But I find that great therapy, and also I have special memories of people whom I have gifted Amish friendship bread to. So I think, unless you're one of the many hundreds by this point of people who've received my Amish friendship bread, you might not know that.
I like it. I think that's such a wonderful idea, and hats off to you for keeping that alive for 32 years.
Oh, boy. Well, and here's a funny side note on it. The Plain Dealer Food Department did a story on this when I started it 32 years ago. And then when my dough turned 21, they came back and did another story saying that I was still baking the dough and it had celebrated its 21st birthday. So I don't know what'll happen. Maybe there'll be another landmark birthday and I'll have to keep going baking it so that we can.
Oh, wow. That's great. All right, Loree. Well, we know that triumphs don't come without some struggles. So talk to us a little bit about what some of your biggest struggles have been. This can be either professionally or personally. And tell us how you were able to get through them and what kind of an impact that they had on your life or career.
The biggest struggle I ever encountered was from a personal nature. And you mentioned in your introduction that I lost my husband to suicide when he lost his battle with depression in 2005. And I would say that eclipses any struggle that I've ever had in my life. And because when that happens, when you lose someone to suicide, of course, a death in any way is tragic, but a death to suicide is really like no other. It's the way I describe it, it's as though a bomb just explodes in your heart and you have to make some choices, whether you're going to survive at all, what is your survival going to look like, and even thrive, how are you going to get on in this? And I didn't know, when this first happened, I didn't really want to go on. I did not see it coming, and it was a big shock. Of course, he had struggled with depression, but had always promised me, we had a pact, that he would never harm himself, because we knew of other individuals who had lost their battle through suicide, to suicide. And but I knew we had 2 children, teenagers at the time, and I knew that for them, I had to move on. A very good friend of mine at the time had said, "Loree, don't waste that pain." And that really struck a chord with me, that, yeah, we have struggles, trials in our life, and they cause pain. But what are you going to do with that pain to make some good come out of it? And so I really searched for, in my heart, what I could do to turn that pain into purpose, and dedicated myself at that point to being a strong advocate for mental health awareness.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Did you have any tips or methods that you used to help you get through those challenging times?
Absolutely. I have a couple. And one, to complete my thought from before about turning that pain into purpose, I had to align myself with an advocacy effort that was ongoing, that I felt would resonate with me. And because I believed that my husband's depression began in his early years when he was probably a teenager, but he was always able to mask it. He was good looking. He was very popular. He was successful in business. He had a wife and 2 children. Everything was going well until it wasn't going well. And some of the masks were torn away. He lost his job at a very critical time. And that began the downward spiral, when the demons of depression just came and took over. But because I believed that his depression began as a young person, I needed to find an organization that focused on mental health for young people. And it was as if a gift was given to me when I learned about Life Act, which is the organization on whose board I serve, and I really worked through to advocate for mental health awareness. And Life Act goes into the schools, middle schools and high schools, with a program to teach young people how to recognize the signs of depression in themselves or in others, and therefore get the help that they need. Because we've learned that 50% of all mental illness, mental disease can be diagnosed in a child by the time they reach the age of 14, 75% by the time they are 17. So if we can identify this in young people, how much easier it is to get them into the treatment that they require to lead normal, productive lives before they're much older as adults and their brains become hardwired. As my husband's brain was hardwired, it's hard to take an adult and get them into the right counseling and medication to really change their behaviors. So Life Act really came into my life at a time that was so very, very important. And then over these last 16 years, I've really been very involved and dedicated myself to that cause. What I can tell you about a strategy that I dealt with during that initial time, which was so painful, was to try to, in an odd way, live just in the moment, not because it had happened. He had taken his life. He was gone. How do I then go on? And I remember being in a terrible state of crying. And my son, who was 19, said, "Mom, it hurts so bad to see you crying." And I said to him, I just need 20 minutes. Just give me 20 minutes where I'm just going to go in the bedroom and I'm going to cry or I'm going to scream or whatever I'm going to do. But then after 20 minutes, I'm going to come back and I'm going to go to work and I'm going to do what I need to do. And it was kind of and he said, "Okay, we'll be good with that." And it was kind of a lesson he was teaching me and I was teaching myself, that you can't deny what you're feeling. You can't deny the terrible trauma that's happened to you, but you can't wallow in it either, because that's easy to go down that dark road. But allow yourself that time. And then that was my own personal way of getting through those initial first days, weeks, if you will. And then I have a very beautiful friend, Barbara Marlowe, who I think is one of your stars beforehand.
Yes, she was.
Yes, and she was my lifeline during that time.
She's wonderful.
I lived with Barb for about 6 weeks after, because we were in Illinois when John died. And she used to put heart-shaped Post-it notes on their kitchen cabinets for every 4 hours that we got through together. And there were a little note like, "Oh, we went to Dillard's. Oh, we did this. What did we do in that 4-hour time slot to get through it?" And I'll tell you, just then be able to look at her kitchen with these pink heart-shaped Post-it notes all over it, saying, "Wow, I've survived all those, 25 4-hour segments." It put a perspective on things. So I guess what I'm saying is, through all of that, to find a way to take your pain and just live with it, work through it, but realizing that you're going to have a ton of 4-hour chunks that you've survived. And pretty soon they're going to be 8 hours and 12 hours. And you might even have an entire day that you get through without crying. It didn't seem possible to me at the time, but wow, what a wonderful thing when I could go through an entire day. And I met a woman also who had lost her husband to suicide, and she said something to me that was so profound. It might not be grammatically correct, but she said to me, and when I spoke with her on the phone, there was laughter in the background, and there was a birthday party happening, and I'm thinking, there's no way I'm ever going to laugh again. I'm never going to be at a birthday party. And she said to me, "You have to believe that there will be days when sometimes you don't cry." And that was a very important message to me, to believe that there will be days when sometimes you don't cry. And when that happened, it was like a light bulb went off. I had a day when I didn't cry. And then those days can sometimes turn into weeks. So I guess to sum it all up is to take things in small chunks, live through them, and know you're going to get to the other side.
There's so much packed into that answer. I love how you mentioned earlier in your response about living in the present moment. And I think that is so, so important. And that's something that I personally have had to learn over the years as well. I personally have struggled with mental health and suicidal depression for most of my life, since the time I was probably 4 years old. So I can definitely relate to the need for getting to children early on with the resources and the care that they need to address mental health concerns. But living in the moment was something that was so profound for me to learn, because I finally realized how much pain I actually caused myself by worrying or reminiscing about the past and things that I blamed myself for, or things that I, beat myself up over that I wish I would have done or done differently and things like that. But also stressed myself out about worrying about things in the future that haven't even happened yet. So I was spending all of this time worrying about the past and the future, and I wasn't actually living in the present moment. And so when I was finally able to make that shift, everything completely changed. And I was able to find joy in the present moment. Not to say that I didn't still struggle with that, because it's definitely a practice, but joy is in the present moment. And that's really the only place that you can find it. Because if you're, thinking about all the things in the past, you're going to dredge up sadness or, longing or regret or, things like that. And it was just a remarkable shift in my mental state and my mental awareness. And I also really loved that you talked about, really expressing your feelings but not letting yourself go down that rabbit hole, like giving yourself a set time. Okay, I'm going to experience this for 20 minutes and then I'm going to get up and I'm going to carry on with my life. And I think that's really important as well, that we shouldn't suppress our feelings or our emotions. They're a natural part of what it means to be human. And so we should express them, but not allow ourselves to become enslaved by them, and to just set that boundary. Like you said, 20 minutes, I'm going to cry my eyes out, but then I'm going to get on and, go to work and take care of my kids and whatever else, needs to be done. So I think those are great strategies and lessons that you shared. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your struggle. And if we could all share the struggles we have, this stigma over mental health would disappear. So the more people like you that can come forward and say, hey, I am struggling. If you had diabetes, everyone would know that, right? But so you have a different kind of condition. The brain is an organ like any other. And so I commend you for your talking to us about that and sharing.
Thank you. So let's shift a little bit now and talk about your biggest triumph. Can you share what that was and what made it so great?
Hey, well, there've been a lot of small triumphs. Now I consider them small triumphs along the way in my journalism career. Of course, whenever you get an award or you get promoted to a new newscast or something, those are triumphs, but now seem very tiny in perspective of greater life events. So I would say this ties back to my experience of John's loss, because we were living out of state. We were living in Chicago. I had left my job and my career at Fox 8 News to move to Chicago for John's job. And then he lost it. And there I was trying to build a career in Chicago and with two kids who were on their way to college shortly. So I think being able to sell a home in Chicago, buy a home in Cleveland, and start a new career was a huge triumph. And it had to happen in a short period of time. So when I got all that together, which magically somehow came together in a concise period of time, and getting my kids on to college and through college, I think that's my biggest triumph, is to be able to make that huge transition and start a brand new career as well on top of all of that. Yeah.
Definitely a triumph. I can't even imagine trying to do all of that.
But, it gives you a new, also a triumph of that is the new perspective that I gained. And it's part of that turning pain into purpose. How can you grow and become a better person as a result of a trauma in your life? And I had an entirely different perspective on life after the loss of John. And that, number one, I never had a 5-year plan again, because life can change in an instant. And I'd rather thoroughly be engaged in living my life than to be thinking that far ahead any longer. But also, I had such a better appreciation for people, not knowing what they're going through. And I had read something about a statistic saying that at any given time, 80% of the people you are going to encounter are going through something traumatic in their life. And I thought, wow, that is so true. You may not know it. It might be the grocery store clerk who is, waiting on you. So I really try to keep that in mind all the time, that everyone I meet has got something they're going on in their life that's impacting them. And so I try to at least smile, perhaps pay a compliment. I like your nail polish, or gosh, that's a great haircut, or, something. And you'd be surprised the reactions people have. And you just never know whether that might be the differentiator in that person's day that brings them that joy that you talked about. So I think a huge personal triumph is a new perspective on how I deal with people and look at people.
That's wonderful. And I am a big supporter of complimenting other people and trying to bring a smile to somebody's face, whatever it might be. Even just smiling at another person,
It's
just
contagious.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And, especially if you're having a bad day, a smile that could change your entire perspective for the day.
Mhm.
Remind you that, not everybody is the Grinch or out to get you or, anything like that, that there's still good in the world. There's still good in people. So, Loree, as you very well know, as women, we juggle a multitude of different things: career, family, household responsibilities, illnesses, caregiving. How do you maintain a work-life balance? And how do you find the support that you need to address these things? Or what do you think that other employers could do to help support these things?
Well, I think I would reflect back on the time when I was on the news and I was anchoring the morning news, and it was new at that time. And so we came to work at 2:30 in the morning, and the newscast began at 6 a.m. Now they begin much earlier, but it was a skeleton crew. We were just launching, it was in 1990, I think, or 92, just launching morning news. And so we came in at that god awful time and did our own writing, did all of this, and getting preparation for the news that launched at 6 o'clock. And at the time I had small children. I think they were like 4 and 6 years old at the time. At any rate, it was a very challenging time because of being a mom, and my husband traveled about 50% of the time. So it was chaotic time. And now you'll have a better appreciation when you turn on the morning news and you see all these lovely anchor people who look cheerful and are just like so perfect. They got stuff going on in their life. And I remember one time my husband was out of town, and my daughter, who was 8, had the flu. She was throwing up all night. So needless to say, I didn't get any sleep, but I had to bring her into work. At the time we were starting at 4:30 in the morning. I had to bring her sick into work with me. And she was in the green room throwing up in a garbage can. And I was out there talking about, the Indians just made it to the playoffs. And hey, let's go down to Jacobs Field and catch up with so-and-so who's standing out there at Bob Feller's statue. It was Jacobs Field at the time. And that was the playoffs. I think that might have been 95. And and all the while my daughter's throwing up in the restroom, in the green room. But the lesson I learned from that is you got to fake it till you feel it. Sometimes bad stuff is happening in your life, but you got to put on a smiley face, put on a demeanor, I should say, a positive demeanor. And suddenly, you're going to start feeling better about things as well. So I think that's my takeaway lesson, and how to balance and juggle all of that is, this is just the situation. This is just the way it is. And I'm going to be as positive about it as I can. And the cards will fall into the right hands.
I love it. Especially, putting on that positive demeanor.
Right.
Because it's true, life happens and you just kind of have to make the best of it. And
yeah. And you know what else is very important, and I think very important for me at that time and it continues to be now, is exercise. It's going to sound odd, but no matter how tired you are, getting out and getting oxygen flowing through your body is so rejuvenating, even when you'd rather just come home and take a nap. Instead, I would go swim on my way home from work, or go to the gym and work on the elliptic machine. But getting oxygen flowing through your blood is so wonderful. And I do that to this day. I don't miss a day of exercising, if at all possible. And even, when my husband passed away, I was out running. I remember the third day I had to run because it was my way of just getting fresh air, fresh blood flowing in my body. So women who are balancing, juggling all kinds of things in their lives, including exercise and taking care of yourself through that exercise, is so important. So that'd be really a strong message I would give to anyone whose life seems so complicated. You can always find 20 minutes. I live by that 20-minute rule. 20 minutes of exercise. You can fit it into any day.
I love it. And exercise releases endorphins, which makes you feel better.
There's a scientific reason for it too, right?
Yep. That's a win-win.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
So, Loree, how would you define success for yourself? And do you have any tips or habits that you use to help you to be successful or to feel successful?
I would define success as feeling a sense of contentment. When you have the peace and joy in your life, there's a sense of contentment that you realize that that's the most important thing. And whatever struggles or trauma enters your life, you can find happiness again. And I would define my personal success as being, and it's not a professional, it's more of a personal success, as finding contentment. And goes back to what I said before about I don't plan for 5 years ahead. I want to be content now, not irresponsibly so. There is planning for the future, but to be content in every stage, whatever happens, whatever life throws at you, to find that contentment. For example, let's say this last year, which has been filled with the pandemic and it impacted everyone in some way, shape, or form. How do you find that kind of contentment when it disrupts your life? You have to find a different way to be content in your world. I know that myself, I'm a highly social person. I love to be around people. A strict working from home thing is not the best way for me to operate. I like to be out and about with people, but I had to find other ways. I would be doing more cooking, or I'd be doing more connecting on the phone, or finding those ways to find that contentment that works for you, regardless of what the circumstances around you are.
I could not agree more. And one of the things that I've used is the practice of meditation to find that content, or to experience that content and that inner peace, regardless of what's happening in my outer circumstances. So I've experienced several losses of family members and friends over the past year for various reasons. And obviously any loss is devastating, but through the practice of meditation, I've been able to really center myself, and it really helps to put things into perspective and to show you what's the word I'm looking for? The transience of things and how impermanent things are, and that things are always in flux, and that you just kind of have to go with the flow. And it's just a wonderful reminder that all we have is the present moment. And so just to really center myself in that. And when I do that, it's amazing to me how much joy and content I find in that state, regardless of what's happening in my life. And so it's been, at least for me, a huge support in so many ways. But I love that you mentioned that finding that content and that joy, that peace.
And I admire you for being able to meditate. I find traditional meditation is not something I've been able to achieve. I don't know why, but I can't seem to focus long enough, I think, in a quieted state. However, I think I found what I call meditation in motion almost, because I can get into a very peaceful state when I'm running, for example, but my body is moving, but my mind can relax a little bit more. So I've kind of made up my own version of meditation because I'm a failure at the traditional.
I can completely relate to that. I had tried meditating for years before, and I couldn't do it. I had been diagnosed with ADD, so there was constantly a million thoughts in my head. And I'm like, I really need to learn how to meditate. There's so many benefits in this for me, but I can't shut my mind off. Yeah. I actually learned how to meditate from a meditation master. Oh. So somebody that actually is part of a lineage of meditation masters that dates back hundreds, if not thousands of years. And learning from him in under 3 minutes, I was able to completely stop every thought in my mind. And I tell you what, when you reach that state, bliss just wells up from within you. It's phenomenal. So don't give up on meditation. just seek out a meditation master.
There you go. I love the word bliss. I'll be in search of bliss then.
I never thought bliss was a real thing, especially having mental health challenges my entire life. I definitely never experienced bliss. I thought it was some, fantasy that people just made up. I never thought it was a real thing, but it absolutely is when the mind is actually quiet and you're just in this state of awareness. It's just bliss. It's absolutely phenomenal.
I won't give up.
Good. So, Loree, take a moment now and reflect on something that you wish you would have known sooner in life and share that with us.
Okay. I think it perhaps is to be confident and peaceful with yourself. I think that for a long time, for a lot of years, I would find myself self-editing myself, my speech, my thoughts, before I would express them. It's almost like meta talk, thinking about how is this going to be received before I would allow myself to express that thought. And now you need to do some of that because we can't be just completely open with no boundaries and no guards. But I was more thinking about how am I going to be received? What are people going to think if I say this? And I think a lot of that comes from being in a news background where you are judged so much because there you are on television and people are just judging what they see. So there was that need to be perfect, if you will, and no one really is. So I think my advice would be to really love yourself enough, respect yourself enough to trust that what you're feeling is valid and be able to express it without thinking about what other people are going to think about you for saying that. And, when I mention television news and being always judged, an example of that is that every day after I got off, I anchored the 12 o'clock noon news, and every day got off and we would write our own news and make sure every word is chosen just perfectly. And I'd get off and the telephone would be lighting up with calls about, hey, where'd you get your necklace? Oh, who does your hair? All of these questions. And I realized how superficial this genre was. So you had that weighing on you that people didn't really care about what you were saying. It was how you looked when you said it. So it took me a long time to really become my official, authentic self and be comfortable with that. Go to the grocery store without any makeup on and not really care, right? I mean, that's what people do, but not if you're on television. And there was a time when I wouldn't let myself do that. And it was just so freeing when I was able to be my authentic self. So I think it comes down to don't self-edit yourself. Just be yourself.
I love it. And I think that's a theme that has come up numerous times in different interviews that we've had, as people realizing the importance of being authentic and being true to yourself. So thank you for sharing that. So Loree, what advice would you give to young women that are just beginning their careers, or perhaps women that are thinking of changing careers?
Well, I think that one piece of advice is to really follow your heart in terms of what you want to do, what career you want to do. And an example I can give of that in my own life is that when I was growing up and in school, I excelled in math, and my mom always thought I should be an accountant. And my life would be very different, I think, if I was. But I loved theater. And so which is a very different thing. And so I pursued theater, and that has to be at any given time, 95% of all union actors are out of work, and only 1% of union actors make 95% of the salaries of others. So it's not going to be a profitable career to pursue for sure. But I pursued it. And the beautiful thing about it is that my mind was set from the time I was 12. I wanted to be Shirley Temple. I wanted to be an actress. And I didn't end up being an actress, if you will, but I landed this phenomenal job in broadcast television. And it was the perfect blend for me because it was much more stable. You signed up for a 3-year contract. There is performing in it, and yet you are still using your brain, and you are still writing, and you are still researching, and all those things that I loved. My brain worked in that way, and I was just so lucky. But I would not have landed that had I not pursued my career in theater. So go with your gut, and none of that is ever wasted. whatever path you take, if you make a 180 and go somewhere else, you're going to take gems from whatever you're pursuing and apply them to your life. So my advice would be to follow your heart and really pursue what makes you happy and content in a responsible way.
Love it. Yes. Don't let others dictate what you should do or what they think you should do, because ultimately you're the one that has to do it. You're the one that has to live your life, not anybody else. Mm-hmm. So what brings you joy? Follow that. I love it.
Yeah. And, I just have to say a funny side note. So I studied theater and I got a master's degree in theater and ended up in television news. And at the time, it wasn't really popular for you to say you were a drama major, right? If you weren't a journalism major, you weren't considered a real journalist. So I was always hesitant about saying that what I really studied in school, until a fellow newscaster told me that he was a drama major. And suddenly I thought, okay, he said it, and I could say it. So then we were very proud of the fact that, I pursued theater and I learned a heck of a lot that's helping me right now to interview all different kinds of people. So
Absolutely.
It's all about following your heart.
Absolutely. I love it. And I love it even more because I didn't pursue it in college, but I took theater in high school and was in a number of different plays and musicals. And I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. But I love how you mentioned, not being afraid. Like, that's what you chose to do. Don't be ashamed of it. You spent good money on it, I'm sure. Be proud of it and look where it brought you. So well worth it.
I can't complain. That's for sure. I've been very fortunate. I've been given, upon occasions, the ball and run with it. That's what my first news director, Virgil Dominic, who is still around doing wonderful things in the communications world, took a chance with me. I met him at a cast party when I was pursuing still theater, and there was a role opening up on PM Magazine, which was a show on local Cleveland news on Fox 8. And I told him the next Monday I was going to be auditioning for PM Magazine. He said, honey, when you stop into the studio, don't go up to the third floor. Stop in my office on the second floor first. And I did, and he hired me as an intern in the news department. I never made it to that audition, but thanks to a chance meeting with Virgil Dominic, my career took a different path. And I'll be forever grateful for the ball that he gave me and allowed me to run with it.
Wow. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, Loree, if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, my email address is the best way. And it is my name, Loree Vick, @gmail.com. And that's LOREEVICK.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Loree. It's been an absolute privilege speaking with you. Thank you again so much for taking the time.
Oh, and thank you for including me in this wonderful, esteemed group of women. I appreciate it.
Thank you. On Technology Partners wants to thank you for joining us on this episode of Women STaRs. If you'd like to appear on a future podcast episode, or if you'd like to nominate a businesswoman to be interviewed for Women STaRs, please email stars@ontechpartners.com. My name is Shanti Harkness. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on today's journey. Remember, you are all women stars. If you wish to learn more about our Women STaRs program or want to be a guest on our show, contact us at stars@ontechpartners.com. And thank you to On Technology Partners for helping me make this program a reality. Remember, we at On Technology Partners want to help you protect your team from hackers. To learn more about our cybersecurity services, go to ontechnologypartners.com.